Hi everyone. Before I begin, I just want to make it clear that I am recording from my husband's computer. I wanted to do the video in this style because this is how I normally do like article type videos, and my computer, my personal computer is dead. That's it. I need another computer now. I haven't made any content in such a long time. It was almost 2 years since I made like the video that I just posted a couple of weeks. I haven't made a video in like 2 years. I really didn't use that computer at all for nothing. Um, so anyhow, as you can see by the title of this, the Trump Musk regime wants to make segregation great again. Is anybody surprised? I'm not surprised. So what I'm going to do, because there's a portion of the article that is like the author kind of talks about like stuff, incidents that happen within his life, and he kind of ties it into what's going on. But I'm gonna skip that, and I'm just gonna go to um the point that I want to make. All right. But I will be leaving the article in the description box as I always do. You know how I do with this stuff. Okay, so that opportunity has come to them in the form of Donald Trump and his co-president Elon Musk. Under this new regime, all of their white supremacist and neo-apartheid ideations can be realized again, literally. Last month, NPR reports the Trump administration is made a racist change to its rules for business that get federal contracts so that federal government no longer explicitly prohibits contractors from having segregated restaurants, waiting rooms, and drinking fountains. We're going back to segregation, guys. The change to the federal acquisition regulation, which is promulgated by the General Services Administration, doesn't necessarily mean that people are free to segregate to their heart's desire. Technically, for now at least, anyone that contracts with the federal government still has to comply with all relevant civil rights laws, including the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits segregation. But my thing is, I could have sworn that he revoked the 1964, 1965 Civil Rights Act. That's a little confusing to me, and I feel like I got to look into that because I did a community post on that a few weeks ago about him revoking something with the Civil Rights Act. So, anyhow, let me read forward. But the change to the rules is not just symbolic. Everything we know and have seen from this administration tells us that compliance with anti-segregation laws will not be enforced by Trump's government. The Department of Justice will not bring discrimination lawsuits against companies that reimpose segregation. Will not bring discrimination. Wow. And now any business that does segregate its workforce can still get a federal contract, even if the business is in blatant violation of the Civil Rights Act, which won't be enforced against them anyway. There is one man who stands to benefit above all others from this change in federal acquisition rules, and that man is, of course, Elon Musk. Musk had been under an intense investigation about allegations of, wait for it, segregationist policies at his Tesla facilities. Trump shut down that investigation. Wow. Trump shut that investigation down as one of his first acts in power, but the allegations remain. Meanwhile, Musk has been gobbling up federal contracts like a grand dragon hoards gold. In the absence of an ongoing federal investigation into Musk's business practices, this little anti-segregation rule buried in the federal acquisitions policy could have opened up a new legal front against him. If the government is not allowed to contract with businesses that run segregated workplaces, and Musk allegedly runs a segregated workplace and receives government contracts, businesses that didn't receive a federal contract might have had standing to sue the government because the equal employment opportunity businesses that didn't receive a contract could say they were harmed by the government's refusal to apply anti-segregationist prohibitions on federal contractors, and that claim could require an adjudication on whether Musk is running a segregated company. Thanks to the rule change, that cause of action is gone. While I'm only learning about the rule change now, thanks to NPR, the GSA actually changed the rule back on February 15th, 5 days after Trump ended the Doge investigation into Musk and Tesla. Maybe it's just a coincidence that Trump changed an anti-segregation government contracting rule less than a week after he ended an investigation into whether his chief contractor was a segregationist. Maybe Clarkside, Mississippi simply couldn't afford to replace this. This part of the article is kind of him kind of going into the top portion of the article. So I'm not gonna read that. I will leave it though. Like if you want to read like the rest of the article, I just figured what I would do. My apologies. Is just talk a little bit about my thoughts. And I'm not surprised. Um, this is we really are living in a time of white supremacy. And before I continue what I just said, I will say that even a few years ago, even I was skeptical when it came to the topic of white supremacy, right? Even I had my reservations on that, and I was like, well, sure, I believe that there's certain people at the top, da da da, but do I believe it's all white supremacy? I don't, and I did argue against that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and lie because, the people that have been following me for years, they know that that's how I felt. And I'm not gonna, renege just because of what's going on now. This is white supremacy. I can't, like, there's no other way to put it. There's no other way to put it. And, I know that there's probably going to be people that are going to argue as to why this is going to be a good thing. And they're going to say, oh, that this is only going to apply to the LGBT community or whatever and all of that. So I'm pretty sure that that's going to be their way to kind of be like this. That's why this is going to be okay because it's only going to apply to these people, even though it's wrong to apply to those people too. But I have a feeling that that's probably what you're going to hear a lot of the arguments in, basically this being for what he's doing, that this is going to be the right thing to do. Um, but yeah, that this is some scary shit. This is literally like stuff that my grandparents and like my parents lived through, and the fact that there's a possibility that times might go back to that again, that I might be reliving, what my parents and grandparents lived through um back in the civil rights era and before the civil rights, because my family has been here for 3 generations. So my grandparents, my parents were here. My grandparents came here. I think it was like in the 40s or something. I believe it was the 1940s. It might have been before that. Um, so they were around when all of this shit hit the fan back in the day. With all of the movement. So the fact that I really might be seeing and reliving what they went through is insane to me, and it's also really scary. And I am living in an area that is this is a majority white area in like a rural area. So it is a little bit intimidating, but at the same time, I'm glad that I live in New York because at least with New York, there's still laws, there's still state laws that are going to give us some type of protection. Whereas if we live in some of these red states, we would be fucked. We would be fucked. So I do feel for the people who live in the red states that didn't vote red and they're suffering the consequences, of what the majority in their state voted for. So I do feel for those people, right? But basically Trump is just doing everything that he said he was going to do, and he's going to do more. And that's really all that this is. So I guess we'll see what we shall see. And I think with that, I'm going to go for now, and I will see you all in my next one. Take it easy, guys. Bye.